here in the United States, and all of this here is Latin America, not just Mexico, more than that. So I'll let you take it away.
Okay. All right. So I made a fun little presentation for you guys. My name is Marisela. I think I met most of you just earlier. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about my family and also this holiday. And so if you guys are curious about all sorts of different things I heard you and I'm going to help answer some of these questions. And if at any moment you have any questions, please let me know. And then just raise your hand or just blurt it out, and I'll be more than happy to answer them. Okay? So I'm going to show you a few images, and we're going to talk about them. The first is this. What do you think about when you see this picture? Yeah.
Spirit Day.
Spirit Day? How about you?
Halloween.
Halloween? All right. Yeah, we see a lot of skeletons around Halloween, don't we? Right? Okay. You guys are just joining us, right?
Yeah. I'm sorry.
What do you think about when you see this picture? When you see this picture, does anything come to mind? Anything at all? Nothing? How about you?
I kind of feel scared.
You feel scared? Yeah, what's scary? What's the scary part?
The body or the way that they dress like.
Yeah. Yeah. She has a name. Her name is La Catrina. Right? This is a very, very famous print by a man, an artist in Mexico named Jose Guadalupe Posada. And he was a very, very famous printmaker. And he lived during the time of the revolution in Mexico. And La Catrina is one of the biggest symbols today of a very important holiday in Mexico called Dia de los Muertos, which means the Day of the Dead. Does that sound scary? No?
It's so cool.
Huh? Does it sound scary?
No, but it also goes to the answer.
Yeah. For some people that I've met, some people that are not from Latin American culture think the Day of the Dead, that's just kind of a scary thing. But lately have you guys heard about this, everybody thinking about zombies and going on zombie walks and that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
To me, that's scary. This isn't scary at all.
I'm scared.
Because in Mexico, when we think about the Day of the Dead, and in other parts of Latin America they celebrate it too, it's more of a holiday, it's festival, right? It's a celebration. So I'm going to share a couple of words that I think about when I see images like La Catrina. I think about I'm sorry. Technical difficulties. Okay. All right. I think about food, about eating. You can't have a celebration without food, right? And we're going to be eating some stuff in a little bit too. Okay, so we make all sorts of different foods, right? This is a time that we celebrate the dead, the people that have passed, that were part of our lives. Our friends, our family, famous people, maybe that we never met, but that were important figures in our culture. We celebrate them. So we make the foods that were their favorites. All right, we make some very traditional things, but we also make things that make us remember the people that we lost. I also think about honor. And when I think about honor, when I say this, I mean honoring the dead, right? By celebrating by celebrating their life, we're remembering them and we're honoring them. And this is a day that we can do that. It's actually 2 days, November 1st and November 2nd. They're coming up right around the corner. November 1st is when we celebrate children who have passed, and November 2nd is when we celebrate the adults, right? So on Halloween, when everybody here is dressing up and putting on costumes and going trick-or-treating and all of this, we hold a vigil for the souls of the children who passed away before their time, right? And then the next day we do the same thing for the adults. So embrace, I put embrace because a lot of times we're scared about death. Are any of you scared about death? Sometimes it's you know, it's kind of a scary thing. And when we celebrate the Day of the Dead, it helps us remember that death is a part of our lives. It's a normal part of our lives. So we have to embrace it. So that means that while we're alive, we have to cherish those moments with our friends, with our family, with everybody. So we have to embrace that death is just a normal part of our cycle of life. And celebrating others who have passed before us and celebrating the moment helps us remember that life is important and that death shouldn't be that scary. Decorate. I love decorating. And we put some banners in the back. It's called papel picado, and it's tissue paper, and they have some Day of the Dead figures on them. So when we celebrate the Day of the Dead, we decorate all sorts of different ways. We decorate our homes, we make altars in our homes, we go to the cemetery and we decorate at the cemetery, we put flowers and food and candles and all sorts of stuff. I love decorating, so that's one of the things that I think about when I think about the Day of the Dead. Sharing, too, because it's a time when people come together. We make food and we share it amongst ourselves. We leave it there for the dead, but we also eat and we celebrate. We share with our families and loved ones. And of course, I've been saying celebrating, right? It's a big party. It's a moment of reflecting about people who passed, but it's also a moment of celebrating their lives and the fact that they were a part of them. So just so you can see how much fun it can be, I found a really neat animation. I think you guys will really like this, about the Day of the Dead. Let's see, some sound. Do you know?
Oops, sorry, Jess.
Yeah, there it is. Good observation.
It should be. I'm gonna try it and see. It really blared last time. Is that okay?
her little girl, at first she was a little scared, right, when she saw the skeleton. But after a while, she started noticing that it wasn't scary at all, that it was a lot of fun. And it was her mother, in the end, who had passed away and who was with her at the party, right? So the Day of the Dead is 2 days of the year where we allow ourselves the opportunity to have the dead amongst the living. Right? So we do all sorts of different things, and I'm going to talk about some of the ways that we try to bring the dead back to be with us. And it's a way to keep them close to us again, to sort of feel that their presence is around us. It's a very spiritual thing.
Pedro López Violín.
Okay, so in Mexico, in many different cities, there are people who dress up all the time. So some places, they only celebrate for 2 days, right? And there are places in Mexico City, in a city called Aguascalientes, they have things going on for an entire month before the Day of the Dead. There are parades, there are activities for kids, for families. People get to dress up and do all sorts of things. There's theater and music. So it's a really, really important holiday. Halloween, we just celebrate one day, right? We prepare, we decorate our homes, and it's very similar to this. So people dress up like La Catrina, and the skeletons are just a normal part of what you wear. There's a really famous Mexican writer. His name is Octavio Paz, and he talks a little bit. I'm gonna make this a little bit shorter, but he talks about what El Día de los Muertos means to people in Mexico. So he says that in other places of the world, I'm just going to sort of paraphrase this, people are scared about death. He says death is a word that people don't say because it burns their lips. That means that they're really scared about it. There's a sort of idea that it's a bad thing, right? It only brings pain and suffering, and that's it. And he says, but Mexicans, we joke about them, we caress it, right? That means we hug it close to us, we celebrate it. He says it's one of our favorite toys and one of our biggest loves. It's a really, really important part of our lives. And he says that doesn't mean that we're not scared about dying, or we're not scared, there isn't any fear associated with death. It just means that we confront it, right? We face it and we say, this is a part of life, and we accept it, and we're going to move forward with it, and it's a little ironic. So by having this attitude, which is an attitude that was inherited from our ancestors, we are able to see death in a different way, right? Okay, so I'm going to give you a little bit about history, just a little tiny bit. So does anybody know what country this is? We talked about this a little bit before. Anybody? Yeah? Mexico. So this is Mexico. Right here is Mexico City, the Central Valley. Around this area is Mexico City. And this is Colima. This is where my family is from, on the coast. Okay? So from Mexico, a little north of Mexico City, all the way down, is where people mostly celebrate the Day of the Dead. And I'm talking about in the way that they go to the cemeteries and they stay up all night and they stay there and everything.
So mostly it's Mexico and not like Guatemala and Nicaragua and places like
There
that?
are Latin American countries that celebrate, they just celebrate a little bit different.
Okay.
Everybody does a little bit different. In Mexico, it is most common to go to the cemeteries and celebrate there. Some places, like I have some friends from Costa Rica, for example, they told me that they just go to the cemetery and there's a mass and everybody goes home. But there isn't any eating there or celebrating, they don't stay up all night, they don't camp out there like in Mexico. And in the northern part of Mexico, where there's more Spanish and immigrants, and there are some French as well, they just go and do a mass, for example. They just go to mass, or they'll have altars at home, but they don't really necessarily stay at the cemeteries.
In the South, they have altars as well, but in addition to going to the cemetery. So
Yes.
it's in both places.
Yes, at home and also at the cemeteries. And that's what we do in Colima, where my family is from. We have altars at home. I have an altar already in my house. We also go to the cemetery. We clean the cemetery, we decorate, we stay up all night, we stay there. All right? So, in Mexico, there was several different indigenous cultures before the Spanish arrived, along with like 500 years ago. We had Aztecs. Have you guys heard about them? A little bit. There was Toltecs, Olmecas, and Mayas. There was a few other groups as well. And they were all a little bit different, and they all occupied different places in Mexico. And they were all living at different times, but they all shared one thing. They all believed in the afterlife. That means in a life after we die. That when we die, we don't stop living. We just we continue living somewhere else. Okay? And they also believed in a goddess. She was called the Lady of the Dead. Her name is Mictecahuitli. Can you guys try to say that? Mictecahuitli. And she's the Lady of the Dead. Okay? And people weren't scared of her. She was revered, right? She was honored. So all of these different cultures, like, I'm going to put this sort of in a way that you can grasp a little bit better. Let's say in the United States, we have all sorts of different people living here, right? We have people who are Chinese, we have people who are from different parts of Latin America, people from India, right? So we have all these different people, different cultures. It was kind of like that in Mexico during some time. So there was a little bit of overlap, but they all believed in this one thing, right? So that's something that we have inherited. And then the Spanish arrives during the conquest in the 1500s, and they brought something else with them. They brought the Catholic Church. Okay? So when this happened, the indigenous people, they celebrated their dead. They honored their dead, they remembered them, but they celebrated at a different time. They would celebrate in July, and it was a whole month. It wasn't just 2 days, it was a whole entire month of celebrations, and they would do sacrifices. Sometimes it was human sacrifices, but they would make food, and they would do all sorts of different things. And then when the Spanish came and they brought the Catholic Church, they tried to impose their religion on the indigenous people that they had conquered. And it worked somewhat, somewhat it didn't. But one of the things that they did was they realized that they celebrated this. And in the Christian tradition, we celebrate All Souls Day, and that's November 1st and 2nd as well. So what they did is that they put these two things together. Okay? And that's how we have what we celebrate today, the Day of the Dead. This is an altar that I made last year for a gathering that I had for some friends and family. So we have all sorts of different things. We have a lot of things. This represents the coming together of these two traditions, right? Indigenous culture and Spanish. We have a cross up here, which symbolizes the church and Christian tradition. And we also have all of these other elements that I'm going to talk about too that are very important in having an altar. This is one of the biggest ways that we show how we celebrate the Day of the Dead. There are many reasons for this. In order to have a good altar, you have to have several different elements. And I'm going to talk about those and what those mean, why we have those. And on the back there, there's a couple examples too. Okay, and we're going to be able to go through those, and you guys can help me kind of build a little altar back there. Some of the things, we call them ofrendas, which are things that we give. Okay, because what we're doing is that we're remembering the dead, but like I said before, we're trying to bring them back to be with us for those 2 days, right? So how do we do that? Okay, there are a couple different ways. We use flowers, right? Because the smell of a flower, the idea is that they will come back, right? We want the souls to be guided back from wherever they are during that time. Food, because after a long journey to back to where we are, they're going to be hungry, right? Fire, we have candles, and that is so that we can light the way back. So there are many places in Mexico where, for example, they'll go to the graveyards and they'll put many, many, many candles. All you see is so much light, and it's so pretty. And sometimes you can go above a hill or something and look down, and it just looks like so much light. And people will do this. Sometimes they'll do like a little pilgrimage down, and so they're feeling like they're guiding the souls back down with them. Water or something to drink, so that in case they're thirsty, so they can quench their thirst. There's some more food and sugar skulls. Back here, this is actually a picture of my grandparents. They have passed, and in the altars we put pictures of people that we want to remember objects. You know, maybe their watch, or like I have my grandmother's handkerchief or something in one of her shawls that I'll put on the altar, and my grandfather's watch. Different things. Sometimes my grandfather liked to play domino, so I'll put a domino set on there too, so that when he comes back to hang out, he can play. So we do all these things thinking about the souls, right? And what their needs would be that are very similar to ours. So we have 4 elements, right? And this is one of the things that we have inherited, one of the ideas we've inherited from our indigenous ancestors. 4 basic elements of life. Fire, so we have the candle to represent fire. We also have earth, and that's represented by the food, right, that we serve for the souls. Water, and that is either a pitcher of water or something to drink. Sometimes people put, like, if somebody's favorite drink was a Coca-Cola or something, they'll put it on there, you know. And air, and that we represent by what you see back there, right? Because the tissue paper, it'll catch the wind, and that'll represent air, right? All right, so I'm going to share with you something that I made for the altar. Usually goes in the altar. We're going to make an altar back there with some of the objects that we have. And I made a very special bread that we only eat during this time.
Would you like them to move around here at the table?
Sure.
And you can sit there in the center.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. This is called Day of the Dead bread, pan de muerto. And it's called that because sometimes it's in the shape of a person, like a skeleton. And so that's normal. And also it can be sort of in this round shape. And this right here, these parts are supposed to kind of look like bones. Do they kind of look like bones a little bit? Yeah. Yeah, kind of. Hmm? Yeah. Yeah. So it's pan de muerto. Do we have something to maybe, I can just,
Just to tear it apart?
yeah, so we can
Yeah,
share.
let me get some napkins.
Okay. So we can share and eat. So right here, one of the things that I didn't mention earlier, I was going to save you for this. This looks like the platform for an altar, right? And there's like three different sections. There's 2 levels right here.
Is there a book in there?
There is a book. Yeah. It's called Day of the Dead. It's a nice little book.
I thought that part would be the way
Yeah, probably can. But the reason for this is because everything that we do, it has a meaning, right? The food, right? The candles, all of this stuff. Yeah, the water, all of it. Also, the platform or the base for the altar has a meaning too. Because we have to remember where the souls are coming from. And this was something we inherited from our indigenous ancestors too. So the underworld is what they used to think that the souls used to go to. So that would be this layer, right? The second would be on earth. Yes, and this is where we put all of the food. All of the food that we make would go on this level, on this tier.
Wait, I thought you meant all of that. Well, this thing would be like what?
Oh, yes, yes. It would
Here's
be, sorry.
Probably not a great bread
Thanks.
knife, but
That's okay. It would be as big as this table or bigger. And sometimes people do it on the floor. They'll
Yeah.
start with the floor and then,
Too big to do.
yeah, it depends. Everyone does it a little bit different. Everyone can be really creative. It's really cool. And then the very top level means like heaven. And that is a direct influence from the Catholic Church, right? Because that didn't exist before in the mind of indigenous idiosyncrasy. So that is what these levels mean. So some of the stuff that you see here, avocado, corn, all these things, where would they go? What layer? Second level, you're right here. These are kind of big.
Pretty sure it was way bigger.
Yeah, if it was way bigger, that's exactly where they would go. Let's talk about peppers. Yep, those would go in that level too. These, where do you think these would go?
On the bottom.
Yeah, on the bottom. On the bottom. Yep.
They can break if they go up here.
Yeah, but also because what he said before, he had he nailed it right on that. The spirits, right?
They go into the ground.
They're in the underworld, yes. Right?
And I can actually see something. I know what you're meaning. Because the colors are like, the colors and the shapes on the colors. It's like this one's like heaven, this one is like, I don't know, but, and this one's the land.
This one is the land.
Oh,
Right here. This one.
so this is
On below. Yeah. All right, so I'm going to cut some of this bread for you guys.
This one's broken.